Activate Your Introvert, the weekly show to help leaders build performance by understanding introversion. In this week's show, why leaders should think about Mental Health Week. Introversion is not a mental health issue. Recruitment, first impressions count. And polls, 76% of Americans are against bringing the Tyrannosaurus rex back from extinction, but 10% are in favour of the idea. This week's show is mainly about Mental Health Week, which is this week. It's an opportunity for people to talk about mental health, raise its profile and lower the stigma. Previous issues of Activate Your Introvert have touched on related issues. You can listen again to the episodes by Mike Pagan, Chillistone and Lisa Seagroatt, as they touch on why this is an important issue for us to understand as leaders. And we're going to come back to that later on today. Today touches less on introversion than most episodes, but where it does, it's about the link, in inverted commas, with loneliness and mental health. Just before getting into that, let's look at the news recently. A 49-year-old woman from London recently married her pet cat named India. They wore tuxedo-style outfits for their wedding ceremony at a park in southeast London. Does this seem crazy? Yes. You may be wondering what the introvert link is. It's this simple. I keep seeing articles on Google and in other places, absolutely stupid articles that I get fed up about can introverts and extroverts get married? Can introverts and extroverts be happy in living together? Yes, of course they can. Those questions were as daft as the news headline about the woman marrying the cat, which genuinely was in the news, by the way. In a poll, 76% of Americans are against bringing back the T-Rex from extinction, 10% in favour of the idea, according to an item I saw from YouGov. I hope this doesn't go the same way as the polls in the UK appear to be heading, where 48% of us are against more stop and search powers for the police and 36% for, as for seems to be winning the day. I raise this one not to be political, but because I want to consider something a business owner recently said to me. He didn't want to ask his staff's opinion on a couple of things about the business, as he might not decide in line with what they asked for. Have you ever run a meeting and needed to know where the feeling lay of your team? Here's the simple thing. Are you using it to inform your thinking or promising to go with the majority? If you make that clear up front, it's okay to ask. Your business is not a democracy, although you can, and probably should, consult those who work for you. Another item in the news, a Londoner was left mortified after mistakenly attaching the results of a sexual health checkup rather than the covering letter to a job application. He said he felt freaked out when he realised he'd attached the wrong PDF to the online form. Within 72 hours I got a standard message saying they weren't proceeding with the application. He thought about asking for feedback, but he said, I think I knew what the feedback was. It looked like I was submitting my application and saying, and here's another good thing about me, I don't have any STDs. The article struck me as amusing when I read it, and it reminded me of some of the odd biases that come out when we recruit. We all have biases. The important thing is to recognise them and to not let them guide us unthinkingly. More recruitment news. In the Metro, Craig Hawker, a pub owner, posted an online vacancy for front of house staff. The advert bans applicants with BO, bad teeth and dodgy toes. The job advert said, those that attend with that fruity BO odour, it's a no-go. Give your pits a wash before you come down for an interview. It went on to say, the key part for any interview is the first impression, so make it good. Now I can understand not wanting to employ people with some issues, but it left me wondering about first impressions. Years ago, I was running a store and recruiting for Christmas staff, ending up using first impressions far more than I should have done. One quiet lady came in and my heart sank as she said she needed to bring her sister into the interview too. After 10 seconds, my head was saying no, but I let them talk. 20 minutes later, I took them both on. 35 years later, I still think they're in the top 5 staff I've ever employed. My worry with too much emphasis on first impressions is, what do you think a first impression should be? Is it informed by an extroverted bias towards chatty, gregarious people? On the other hand, dodgy toes? Well, what can I say? It's definitely time to move on and touch on this week's theme, Mental Health Week. This year's Mental Health Week focuses on loneliness. According to recent research by the Mental Health Foundation, 1 in 4 adults in the UK have felt lonely some or all of the time over the previous month. I'm interested in loneliness, as many think that introverts are all lonely and sad, which is not true. I want to talk about introversion and loneliness, but before going on, here's 6 ideas to help with loneliness. 1. Keep busy enjoyably. One way of trying to manage loneliness is by keeping busy and doing things we enjoy, gardening, the gym, or even sorting out the spare bedroom. Small activities can give you energy and positive feelings if they're fun or fulfilling. Mentalhealth.co.uk makes a point about working too hard or watching TV as distractions because they can make things worse. Number 2. Stimulate your mind. Maybe take a course or even listen to podcasts. So I hope this one does the job of a stimulating thought. Number 3. Physical activity. Maybe even just a brisk walk. Sometimes my activity involves relaxing 30 metres underneath the English Channel. This week I was excited to be watching squid playing games, as opposed to Squid Games on TV, which has never excited me. Number 4. Engage with people. This one might not seem as natural for an introvert, although I've interviewed several people on this show who make a habit of saying hello as they're walking past people in the street. Introversion is not about not liking people. Chatting to people as you walk past them in the street is quick, it's easy, and it can help lighten your own day. And in doing so, you may well be doing exactly the same for somebody else. Number 5. Spend time with people who understand you. Mike Pagan's episode a while ago on mental wealth strongly mentioned mastermind support groups. Who is in your support team that you also support? And number 6. Be wary of social media. For some it helps, and others it doesn't. How about you? There are times when I engage in discussion or support with somebody and I feel good. There are times when I'm already feeling a bit low and 10 minutes on Facebook leaves me feeling a lot worse. I hope that that's not you too, but if it is, think about not doing it. I spent the weekend with friends and enjoyed eating a huge amount of chocolate cake. Really rich chocolate cake looks appealing, tastes delicious, satisfies, slides down easily and is filling, but has no nutritional value. It reminds me of playing on Facebook. That little, ooh, that's nice, doesn't create as much positivity as going out and doing something that I already know I like. It's just that Facebook is seductive and easier than getting up and going out. Introversion and loneliness. It's this week's question of the week, and it was given to me when I was chatting about the subject. Are introverts lonely? No, introverts are not lonely. Well, no lonelier than anybody else. Okay, that's not strictly true. Can you cast your mind back 2 years to what, hopefully, will be the biggest global health challenge we'll ever be faced with? COVID was ravaging the world, and many countries had a lockdown of one severity or another. At the time, I was incensed by the comments that lockdown was introvert heaven. You may remember me commenting on it on this show. I've now seen a survey which shows introversion predicted more severe loneliness as a result of COVID-19 circumstantial changes. There's a survey by Marianne Way called Social Distancing and Lockdown, an Introvert's Paradise, and the link is on the show notes. But it does show that introversion did predict more severe loneliness than extroversion. Now I think there's two things here. Number one, being introverted does not mean you are lonely or that there's anything wrong with you. Number two, what does lonely mean anyway, and how can we help? To me, lonely is feeling down because of the lack of friends or people around me. In fact, thinking about it, as I've felt really lonely in a crowded room before now, it's about connection more than people around me. So I guess the issue becomes, do I feel like I'm missing social contact with other people? If I do, I'm lonely, whether I'm introvert or extrovert. Introverts may be choosier about who they spend their energy with. Breathe in slowly for a moment. Go on. Hold that breath and feel how big it is in your lungs. Let it go. Slowly. Imagine you had a fixed number of those breaths. Each breath you spend with a person is an investment in that person. Who would you invest your time with? If you're feeling de-energized and exhausted, you're more likely to feel negative than when you feel great. So choosing who you spend your time with as an introvert can be more important. As a leader, forcing people you suspect to be introverted to spend time at the end of the week with their workmates in a team social is not always going to help. One of the telltale signs of an introvert is how changeable they are on the subject of going out for a drink at the end of the working day. Sometimes you can end the day with energy and, yeah, it'd be great to go out, and other times you've got no energy. Introverts are more likely to feel exhausted by spending time with others. 3 questions you might like to think about when you consider loneliness. Do I feel like spending time by myself is a negative experience? For many introverts, a lot of the time it is not a negative experience. How much regular contact do I have with family and friends? Do I have positive and supportive relationships in my life? And that comes back again to Mike's mental wealth pieces. I guess for each of those questions, it's the levels of contact we desire, and that will vary from person to person. But for me, the first question is the most telling. Do I spend time by myself and think it's a negative thing? Introverts can spend time on their own and feel good about it, but also can spend time on their own and feel negative about it. Maybe, just maybe, an extrovert might be more likely to feel negative if on their own. The Marmalade Trust is the UK's leading loneliness charity for all ages and the only charity in the world specifically dedicated to raising issues of loneliness. If you want more ideas and help, their website is marmaladetrust.co.uk. In a slight break to the normal format of this session, I'm now going to give you a cut from a presentation I gave a while ago. If you knew somebody who was tending to avoid people, even friends he normally socialised with, who was struggling to make decisions at work and doing his best to avoid them, who was struggling to make decisions at home and sometimes felt the urge to cry at just having to decide between crunchy or smooth peanut butter. You might wonder if he was struggling with some type of depression. Well, I was. Thanks to persistent friends and the support of an amazing boss, I got help in the end. I still struggle to talk about it now. So I apologise if I wobble a bit here, but I think it is important to talk about this. At the time, I was on what I now lovingly referred to as my red diet. That is, Red Bull all day long to keep me awake because I was that tired, and red wine at night to knock me out and send me to sleep without thinking and overthinking, my mind whizzing round and round and round as I lay down in bed. Most evenings I'd sit at home watching complete rubbish on TV just to take my mind away from things. and to avoid thinking about me and to avoid my friends. I'd normally start on the sofa, but by the end of the evening I'd have piled all the cushions on top of myself, perhaps in some metaphorical attempt to hide from the world. I'd eventually start to doze off a lot and then drag myself upstairs to bed, leaving cushions and a deconstructed sofa all over the place. In the morning, I'd wake up and try to talk myself up. Quite often, I'd do a reasonable job and I'd start to feel more positive about myself, and at least I'd say, today I'm going to take one step and move forward. Then I'd walk downstairs to make tea, seal the cushions, and immediately start to despise myself once again. It took a long time and good support before I realised what, let's be honest, you've already worked out. I needed to use the most two powerful words in the English language. See, that's not what you expected me to say. Before going to bed, I choose to feel better and make the effort to tidy up the cushions. Yes, it was obvious to my friends. Yes, it is obvious to me now, but I certainly couldn't see it at the time. And it was a huge choice to make. But those two words, I choose, meant I was taking some positive step. Now, that was not the only step, but as I look back, it was one of the bigger things I started to do. Having done that, I was able to go to the doctor. I was able to get some more help from other places. And there are still times when I struggle. Yeah, but very rarely now. And I always focus on the fact that I choose and why I choose. So why am I sharing that story with you now? Many people don't know that I was there. The more people we know about, the less there is a stigma, and that's a positive thing. The second reason is to remind myself that those two words are incredibly powerful, and I still use them to this day. I choose. The third one, to show a real-world example of something I'm about to talk about. And the fourth one, in case you ever come around to my house and you see cushions everywhere, you'll know to be nice. Mental health awareness is an important leadership skill in my view. Your role as a leader, after all, involves getting your team to work well together. Some would say that's the only role of a leader. Therefore, it's important you have an understanding of your team and their well-being. Your team can't work together properly if any of them are struggling with personal issues which leak across to their work. So how can you identify mental health challenges? Number one, withdrawing from other people. This might be harder to spot if you've got some introverted members of your team, but withdrawing from others is not about introversion. Many extroverts do it too when suffering from mental health challenges. Number two, a deterioration in work output or motivation. If an otherwise good employee suddenly drops their work output, what's the reason behind it? Number three, difficulties in making decisions. I gave you that example earlier, and I subsequently found out that this was quite common for people who were struggling with mental health issues. Perhaps you've got a team member who normally is good at finding solutions, but is now struggling and can't decide on things. Number four, significant changes in energy, eating habits, or perhaps mood or mood swings. And number five, losing interest in activities they used to enjoy. One of the biggest things I remember from my time when I was not feeling too good, he says, trying to dress it up in a nice way, I was depressed, is feeling ashamed. Ashamed that I was the only one and that I'd get the sack for non-performance. I was lucky. As well as friends suggesting I got help, my boss was surprisingly empathetic. I say that in retrospect, not at all surprising. He was a great boss, but at the time it felt like a great surprise. He alone made a huge difference. If you can provide a reassuring conversation and offer support, that alone can go a long way. Perhaps you can help by changing timelines for some projects, or get others to take up the load. Reducing the sense of, I'll never manage all of this, really helped me. Certainly, since then, I've seen that many others are helped in the same way as I was. Some people I've spoken to said how much better they felt when the boss shared some of their own struggles, because again, it helped to reduce that shame. There are many places that you, as a leader, can go to for more ideas, and many places you can get employees to go to. My aim today wasn't to solve mental health, but, as the aim of Mental Health Week says, to talk about aspects of mental health.
I'm John Baker. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful. There's a new episode every Thursday at activateyourintrovert.co.uk and your favourite podcast provider. Till then, go be introversial, activating your introverts, building your business.